Joshua Manga has been working on these tomato smallholdings in southern Tanzania for the last 6 years. In the peak season, up to 1,000 children work here. Children make up about 1/3 of the world's agricultural workforce.
Sometimes lots of children come. I've forgotten how many. Today only 2 of us came. I work here because I need money.
The bad thing is all the time they're bending down, picking the tomato, and no rest. It's a non-stop work, 4 hours. Now when they employ the children, the profit margin is going up because they're paying less the children. Yeah, that's why they like the children. They're afraid they can be beaten, they can be punished, you see. They're faithful to the owners.
Tanzania depends on agriculture. It accounts for more than 50% of its income. The biggest earners are the commercial coffee, tobacco and tea plantations. But in Tanzania, as elsewhere in the developing world, children have been used as cheap and exploitable labour. The Tanzanian government has committed to cracking down on the worst forms of child labour. This includes children employed in commercial agriculture, who have for years suffered from long working hours, lack of education and the dangers of agricultural work. In some areas, it seems as if the government's commitment is showing positive results. The challenges, though, remain constant.
I am here to reaffirm my own political will and commitment, as well as that of my government, to do all that is in our power to fight all such worst forms of child labour. Tanzania is one of 3 countries that have made a commitment to implement a time-bound program to achieve the effective and sustainable elimination of worst forms of child labour.
Through awareness raising, assistance with schooling and the implementation of new laws, the government of Tanzania, together with the International Labour Organization and other stakeholders, is developing a comprehensive time-bound program to eliminate child labour. To stop children from working, one of the key groups to target are the employers.
We started sensitizing employers in commercial agriculture, in sisal industry, tea industry, coffee industry, and partly the tobacco industry. In all this, we collaborated with the trade union movement, the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Community Development and Women and Children, and the local authorities. Our rapid assessment, which was carried out in May 2000, showed that in the areas that we covered, child labour was reduced by almost 70%. Tea is the area where we made a lot of effort.
Child labour has been pretty much stamped out on the large-scale tea plantations. In the southwestern district of Iringa, the main tea producers are the Mufundi Tea Company and Brookbond. Together, they cover 24,000 hectares. 35,000 people, including dependents, rely on these estates for their livelihoods. David Mageze works as a personnel manager for Brookbond.
I tend to see Brookbond as a trendsetter, as an example to be copied by the rest of the industry. In Tanzania, we are the largest single producer of tea. Given the poverty levels in this country, there is that pressure from the communities, the people who live around our properties, to try and ask that maybe we employ their children, but we say no. And that's why I said there was a need to raise awareness, not only within the company but outside as well.
The tea industry has been working in parallel with the government to address child labour, both focusing on the key area of education. The schools on the plantation are some of the best in the country and act as a major incentive to keep children from working. The government has now made it compulsory for children to attend primary school. Whereas several poor countries are introducing cost-sharing in education, Tanzania has recently scrapped school fees. As a result, the number of children attending school has risen dramatically. As well as schools, the company provides free medical facilities to its employees. Dr. Mbaga at the Brookbond Hospital explains the sort of problems facing children who are still working elsewhere.
A child normally, would like to play with chemicals. When you tell them that don't do that, they will do it during weeding or doing something like that. If you expose them to that kind of job, probably will get a lot of problem. The other job which I would say also is very dangerous is when they are cutting, either they may cut themselves or those pieces may injure either in a body, for example, in the eyes or something like that. Of course, the other hazard I will say is snake bite in those areas. If you talk about the tobacco, there is irritation, and I must say, if you expose, for example, a child to that type of condition, will be mostly dangerous to a children.
Tobacco is one of the main cash crops in Tanzania. Unlike the tea plantations, most tobacco farms are privately owned. In the Iringa district, all the plantations are owned by a group of Greek Cypriot families who started these farms from scratch 50 years ago. Kalogeris Kyriakos is the owner of this farm. Unlike the big international companies, these private farms may not comply with international trade regulations or be too concerned with their corporate image in terms of child labour.
The ILO has been supporting the Ministry of Labour. I will recite the example of training labour inspectors, but also increasing the institutional capacity of different actors, for example, trade unions, employers, and even NGOs, mostly in terms of training, but also providing them with equipment and also support with technical personnel.
Kambeta Manuka is the regional labour officer. He regularly visits to check on working conditions and to see if any children are being employed.
Usually, these farmers try to use the children because they are easy and they can do more than the adults, especially in tobacco. During the past, some children you would have seen them here. But today, as we are seeing, there's no any child inside here. In fact, where the smell comes out is the smell of tobacco, the fermented tobacco, which now they are sorting for the sale. Yeah. In fact, this smell, although it is a bit, it is choking. Yeah.
Children working on tobacco farms have been shown to absorb nicotine through their skin and have inadvertently become nicotine addicts.
Always we try to discuss with these farmers so that they should not employ children, and also we sometimes threaten them by sending them to the court. Yeah, but now I think since this program started, I have seen at least the situation has been reduced.
But despite the successes, there's still work to be done. The root cause of hazardous child labour is poverty, and if there's not enough money at home, the children will be sent out to work. Frank has been working in the tobacco farms since he was 7 years old. He now works full-time at the nearby plantation.
It can give you aches and pains, and right now we are in pain because we have to work long hours.
We appreciate those tobacco grower people. They are the only ones who provide for us. I don't understand. If I tell my children to stop working, how will they live if I don't have enough money of my own?
I can't stop working in the plantations because where will I get the money from if I don't do the job? So I must work.
Poverty should not be taken as a blanket excuse for child labor. We appreciate the fact that in many cases children have to work in order to contribute to the family income or to the family subsistence needs. But it is possible also for parents to send their children to school even when they are poor, given certain arrangements. If we have young people who are not skilled, who are not educated, then whatever else we do, we are not going to make any headway in development efforts in the future.
Frank was prepared to speak to us, but it was difficult to find more children who would openly talk about working on the farms. Most children who are still working will not admit to what they're doing. The problem is that whilst people are more aware that it's wrong for children to work, most Tanzanians are getting poorer. The tobacco industry and other agriculture is in crisis. Reduced government subsidies on inputs like fertilizer have made crops more expensive to grow and less competitive in the international market. Employers have less money to pay their workers, parents have become unemployed, and more children are forced to work for less. Whilst boys can still find work in agriculture, increasingly girls are heading to the cities to find money.
For the children themselves, they find that it's difficult also to survive. So they migrate from rural areas, from the plantation to the urban areas, to be employed as domestic workers, to be employed as barmaids, homemaids, and to be involved as in the informal sector by selling different things. And this informal sector is more dangerous than the first, maybe in tea or tobacco.
At 15, Perez left her village to work as a domestic maid in Dar es Salaam.
Life at home was very poor, and the people who were coming from Dar es Salaam told us about the city and how life was there. They didn't tell us about the dangers of that place. Because he was the son of the boss, I had to do what he told me to do. He shouted at me, and I was shocked. I was still a virgin when he forced me to have sex with him. He was the first one.
Philotheus is the director of IDYDC. He raises awareness of children's rights through village workshops and meetings. He's also promoting economic alternatives to give parents an income so that their children don't need to work.
There are two alternatives. The first one is to make more awareness to the people, to the parents, to the community about the human rights, the children's rights, the rights for the children to rest, to play. The other alternative is to empower the families by maybe getting some sort of small loans. They can earn something and support their children to go to school instead of sending the children to work.
Philotheus now has to deal with a new problem, the rapid spread of HIV/AIDS.
The problem now, at least after 3-4 households, there's a person who is sick. And every day we are burying somebody. Every day we are burying somebody. So that's a bad sign.
This center is home to many orphans. There are over 1 million AIDS orphans in Tanzania. With the number of HIV/AIDS deaths rising dramatically, there will be even more orphans. How will this impact on child labor?
Children who are AIDS orphans are children at risk of getting into child labor or even into worse forms of child labor. The time-bound program is focused on the worst forms of child labor. So we have a strong reason to lift the interventions at a level where we can achieve more comprehensive and sustainable results.
Working with the organization Kiwahede, Perez now uses song and drama to warn children and parents about the dangers of child labor. By the year 2010, the Tanzanian government's commitment to the time-bound program should ensure that other children like Perez, Frank and Joshua will be free from the chains of work, both in the fields and elsewhere.